Hey there, guys. Friday afternoon, and I was wanting to jump on and chat a little bit about something I've been thinking about today. Hey there. Hey, Susie. If you are new to one of my scopes, please go ahead and put up your name and maybe your kids' ages so that I can know who you are. Let me turn the camera around while you're doing that. Hey there. How's everybody doing today? Hey, Donna. Welcome. So, I don't know if you guys follow Brandy Venzel. Anybody here follow Brandy Venzel at Afterthoughts? I have just started following her. I'm new to her blog. Hey there. How are you guys doing? Hi, Ingrid. Welcome. Happy Friday. So I read a blog post that Brandy Venzel did. I guess it was maybe at the end of February, so it's been up for a little while. But she was talking about whether or not it's right to make your children apologize or to make them say that they're sorry. And there was just a lot of good stuff in that blog post. A lot of, Ingrid, I'm glad you're on here. It's always fun to catch live scopes, isn't it? So anyway, just the idea of working with our children when they've done something wrong and helping them to say that they're sorry, or whether you should, require them to say they're sorry. And where she was coming from with this post was that she had read Elyse Fitzpatrick's Give Them Grace. Has anybody read that book? It's a parenting book, and it's written from, a Christian perspective on parenting, not from a legalistic mindset, but from more of a grace-based kind of a parenting attitude. So anyway, so she was talking about Elyse Fitzpatrick in the book Give Them Grace was talking about how if you require your children to apologize, then you're risking kind of training them to be hypocrites, because they're going to have to say something that they don't really feel. They might say, you might require them to say they're sorry when they don't really feel sorry. You might ask them to say they're sorry and they don't really feel sorry about what they did. And so Brandy Venzel's point was that we often have to do things that we don't feel at the moment, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, that sometimes training ourselves in good habits can be helpful, because you can, sometimes just starting out with the action can help you to think rightly about what you're supposed to be doing. Just starting on the right path can help you to get your feelings in line with what you should be feeling or what you should be thinking. Yeah, Susie, that's fine. And anybody who's new to my scopes, Periscope is a very fluid medium. So if you are on for a couple minutes and then you got to hop off and check the dryer, or you got to go take care of kids or whatever, you don't have to apologize. You don't have to, explain yourself. You can just hop in and hop out, and whatever is convenient for you is totally fine. So I've been thinking about this, because I feel like as my kids have gotten older, there's been kind of a shift in what it looks like to work with them through reconciliation. So, definitely I agree with the blog post she wrote, that there is value in just training in good habits. Just like you train your children to say thank you, and you train your children to say please, you should also train your children, to say I'm sorry, or to apologize when they've done something wrong. She had a really sweet example in her blog post about kids, like two children kind of encouraging or counseling two other children in apologizing when something had gone wrong. Hey there, welcome to the scope. I definitely love the idea of just training our children in good habits and good patterns. But I think one of the things that's been interesting to see as my children have gotten older is what it looks like to, to begin to move from, and Brandy Venzel mentions this in her post too, but to begin to move from more of an attitude of a, telling the children this is what you do, moving more towards a role of like a coach, a mentor, a counselor, and helping them to work through what's going on in their hearts. And yes, right, exactly. And I can understand both sides too. When I was reading the article, at first I was reading the article and I was thinking, oh, I don't agree with this. I don't like the way she's approaching it. By the time I got to the end, there's 3 parts to the article. So it's, there's more to read. And then also the comments. When I read the comments at the bottom, I thought to myself, I think if I sat down for coffee with Brandy Wenzel, we probably would see eye to eye on a lot of things. And perhaps, our differences might be more in terms of semantics or in terms of what she was emphasizing. Because, sometimes you emphasize something because you see an opposite thinking that's a little bit problematic, and so you're addressing a particular problem, and so in response to that problem you are addressing, you are emphasizing something more than you would if you were just giving your broad thoughts on that idea. So I think what Brandy was addressing was, is it hypocritical to have your children say they're sorry if they don't really feel really sorry? And so here are my thoughts on that, and I will say that that's exactly what these are. They are my thoughts as I'm processing this. I didn't introduce myself at the beginning, but my name is Lena Sutherland. I'm a homeschool mom to 7. My oldest is not quite 11, so I am by no means at the end of this journey. I think Brandy Wenzel's oldest is a couple years older than mine, so she's even a little further along than I am. But, one of the things that I think is important is when our children have conflicts, that we see this as an opportunity. I know that it always feels like an interruption, and it is. It can be an interruption when there's conflict, but it's an opportunity. Because these are skills that our children are going to need for their whole lives. And so taking the opportunities when they arise to work through these things with them will be of lasting value, right? And it's hard to have that outlook when you're in the middle of it. I know, especially like I always say, it seems to happen when we're sitting down for read aloud time. Like right when I have this vision of how we're going to have this sweet, cozy time and we're all going to sit down and we're going to read aloud together and it's going to be so cozy. And then the kids fight and it's not cozy at all. And it's not at all what we imagined it to be. Okay. So first of all, the conflict, as interrupting as it can be, it's an opportunity. Now, the second thing that I feel like is really important. Hey, Gretchen, so glad to have you. Welcome, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So emotions, I heard this quote one time, and it's from a movie that I wouldn't necessarily recommend. So I hate to say the movie that it's from, but anyway, the quote went something like this. Emotions are like kids. You don't let them drive the car, but you also don't stuff them into the trunk. So, our emotions, we don't allow our emotions to drive us. We don't say, well, this is how I feel, so I just have to act on it. But emotions are important things to listen to and to investigate, because you've got your emotions, and underneath or behind your emotions are your thoughts. And then behind or underneath your thoughts are your beliefs. So, that could be a whole nother conversation in and of itself. But so when our children are having conflict with each other, it can be helpful to say, okay, this is making you angry. Sorry, my real phone is ringing. This is making you angry, and then look behind that. Now, when they're little, that process often is not taking place. Like my 3-year-old today, pushed her brother backwards. She knew right away she'd done the wrong thing. I told her, you need to say you're sorry, and she did. But when they get a little older, there's a lot, they're maturing and their thoughts are more complex. And so there's a lot more work to do, but there's also a lot more opportunity to look at what's happening there. And so I think that the thing that's important to do is to give them the space to work through what they need to work through, so that when they say, I'm sorry, they can mean it. Now, whenever we say things, we can mean them, but yet not fully grasp what we're saying, right? Like, so a child could say thank you, like you make dinner and they say thank you. Now, do they really appreciate all the work that you put into that? Do they really understand how much effort that took for you to do it? Are they really as thankful as maybe they ought to be? Probably not, but it's still okay for them to say thank you, even at their own level, whatever they can say. So I'm not saying that we need to just fully grasp all the implications of every way in which we've affected the person before we can sincerely say, I'm sorry. But what we want to avoid, I think, is encouraging our children to basically to lie, to be deceptive, right? Like if you say, you damaged your brother's picture, you need to say you're sorry, and they say, sorry. Well, that's essentially lying, because your mouth is saying, I'm sorry, where your tone of voice and your heart are saying, I don't care. I'm glad I did it. Right? And so if you think about the word sorry, it comes from the same root as the word sorrow. So when you say, I'm sorry, what you're saying is, like, I feel sad about that. And we ought not to say we feel sad about something when what we really feel is irritated or, okay, interesting. Now, please, guys, please chime in. This is not like the Lena show. This is, I know it's difficult when I'm talking and you just have thumb input, but please, if you have a thought, please share it. I'm not the expert on this. I'm just working through these thoughts out loud. So I think, in my mind, being sorry, you can really separate that from the circumstances and take it back to, the Bible says that we should rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. So if you have a child who's sad, then the people around them should be sad with them. Completely separate from what responsibility or blame you had, in that. The first thing is, my brother's sad, and that ought to affect me. My sister's upset. That should matter to me. That should make a difference to me. And so, we use the word sorry. We use that phrase, I'm sorry, kind of in 3 different ways. So, like you might say, oh, I'm so sorry your picture didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, right? And that's not an apology. That's not, saying I'm to blame that your drawing didn't turn out. You're just saying you're sad that your drawing didn't turn out the way you wanted it to. And because you're sad, I'm sad with you. Your feelings matter to me. And so when you're sad, that makes me sad too. I'm sorry your drawing didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, okay? So if it's okay to say sorry, I think of this kind of like sharing. If you make them share, they aren't having the right heart. Yes, right? And it's a balance, because there are some times where you as the grown-up need to say, okay, you're not making good choices. This is where we need to go. Yes, hard issues to be dealt with first. Now, okay, so the thing that's tricky is with us as grown-ups too, sometimes the heart attitude comes first. Sometimes it doesn't. Like when it's time to make dinner, I may not be like, oh, I just can't wait to serve my family. I'm so looking forward to, doing this for them. I might say, I do not want to do this right now, but I know it's the right thing to do. I know we need to eat. So here I go, and I'm standing up, and I'm boiling something on the stove. And as I'm doing that, maybe I'm thinking, yeah, I'm thankful. Fake it until you can make it, right? So, and also when it comes to sibling relationships, if you refrain from, say, hitting your brother just because you'll get in trouble if you do it, is that the complete right attitude that we want them to have? Is that the, end of maturing in that area? No, we want them to be motivated by their love for their brother. But you know what? Not hitting your brother is a good start, right? And if you refrain from hitting your brother, or you refrain from yelling at your brother, then there's that much less damage that you have to do to repair the relationship later, right? So if you're angry, but you don't hit or you don't yell, you're just a little bit closer to being able to go back and reconcile and wrap up that situation than you would have been if you had just said, I'm feeling angry, and so the authentic thing to do would be to just hit my brother because that's how I'm feeling, and it would be hypocritical of me to not hit my brother if I'm angry. So going back to sorry. I'm sorry just means I'm sad with you. You're sad, I'm sad with you. the basic level is, you're sad for something that doesn't really involve me, but I'm sad with you. You're sad because your drawing didn't work out. You're sad because you can't find something that's special to you. I'm sad with you. The second level of sorry is when you've been involved in causing their pain, but accidentally, right? Like you step on somebody's foot, or you use something that they were planning to use, or you bump them when they were carrying a glass of milk or something like that. So without malice, right? So the first thing you're saying is, you spilled your milk. I'm sorry. And then I'm going to take it one step further, and I'm going to acknowledge the fact that even though I didn't mean to, I was kind of the cause of that. Like, I'm sorry, I bumped you. I feel really bad about that. I didn't mean to. And the difference there is the I didn't mean to comes as a part of the sorrow, not as a reason for why you shouldn't have to be sorry, right? Because sometimes you'll see the kids do something and it's accidental, but the first thing out of their mouths is, I didn't mean to. Like, I shouldn't have to care about her because I didn't do it on purpose. And so, they're missing the point. The point is, when your sister's upset because she just spilled her milk, you're upset with her. And then if you had a part in that, even accidentally, then you're saying, oh, I'm sorry. I feel bad that I participated in that. The same way you would do if, say, you were supposed to bring something to a group function and then you were sick and so you couldn't bring it. You would say to the person, I'm really sorry. I'm not going to be able to bring the cookies. Now, you're not admitting that you've done something like wrong or that you've grieved them. You're just saying, I'm sad because you're having this difficulty. You don't have the cookies you were counting on because I was supposed to bring them. And I recognize that I am involved in that disappointment to you. I didn't do it on purpose. I'm not really having to apologize for a breaking of a law or something. It's just acknowledging, and that can be meaningful to the person. And in that context, saying that I didn't mean to can be comforting. Like when you say, oh, I'm sorry I stepped on your foot. I didn't mean to. You're just reassuring them, I didn't intentionally want to hurt you, but I know that I was involved in your foot being stepped on, right? And so then, of course, the third and the most complicated level of apology is when they're sad, and not only were you accidentally involved in their sadness, but, there was some intentional, even in the heat of the moment, but some intentional, like, I hit you because I was mad. And so those are the cases where I feel like, especially as your kids get older, it is really important to not push them to say what they can't really say yet. And I'm not saying that we just sort of, let go of it and just let whatever happens and don't, provide any guidance there. But I will, for example, I'll let my kids say something like, I know I shouldn't have done that, but I don't feel ready to apologize yet. And I think that, their siblings can respect that they understand, that there needs to be some reconciliation here, but they're not ready to say it sincerely yet. And what I generally try to do with that circumstance is not say to the offending party, well, just run off and play until you feel ready to apologize. It's more like, okay, well, why don't you and mommy talk, or why don't you sit in the living room for a minute while you get yourself together? Because, it can be hurtful to the sibling that was offended if the offending sibling runs off and just acts like, yeah, life is good. I'm not sad at all. I hurt my brother, but I don't care. Right. We do this as grown-ups, right? We do this as grown-ups. So I was thinking about, in the article that I read, she was talking about how, sometimes you have to apologize as a grown-up. Yeah, and I mean, being a homeschool mom, like, you're doing this all the time. At least I am. In my homeschool, there are conflicts lots of times during the day, many wonderful opportunities for sibling counseling. So I would rather for my children to say, I know I should be sorry, but I'm not ready to do that yet. My oldest is almost 11. I've got 7 kids. The youngest is 1. So kind of roughly spanned between 1 and 11 is where we are right now. And then in reverse, yeah, right. Okay, so exactly. So when we are upset about something, and as adults, a lot of times our interactions with people and our need to apologize happens like out of the context of the moment, right? So like you're at a meeting or something and you get heated up and you say something that you wish you hadn't said, but you're not processing it until like you're driving home and you're going to bed that night and you're thinking about it, and it's the next day before you call the person and say, that was really thoughtless. I wish that I hadn't said that, right? But imagine if you were in a meeting, saying something thoughtless, unkind, and the person next to you were to turn to you and say, that was inappropriate. You need to apologize. I don't know. There are probably people out there that could do that very graciously. I think I would then be angry at the person that I was offending and the person who had just told me that I need to apologize. And, again, maybe that's just an admission that I'm not as mature and gracious as I ought to be. But, right, I would want to be able to say, I'm sorry when I could mean it. Yeah, right. Well, I mean, yeah, that's fine. I mean, but this is the way it is with everything with our kids, right? You might look at your kids and think, oh, they should be able to do this. They should be at this place maturity-wise. They should want to do this, or have, or maybe I should have trained my kids to do this. But you know what? It's kind of irrelevant. We are where we are, and they are where they are, and we're kind of not doing anybody any good if we spend a whole lot of time spinning our wheels over where we should be, or where they should be, or where they ought to have been, or what we should have done, or what they, Instead, it's like, okay, well, here's where we are. And so now the question is, how do we go forward from here? How do we love, right where they are, and then help them to go the next step, whatever that is? Manners videos. You know what? I am not familiar with any manners videos, so I'm sure there are really great ones out there. I am completely uninformed and not qualified to talk on that subject at all. But yeah, feel free to share if you've got suggestions or ideas. So I'm not opposed to there being an outward framework for what your children say, because sometimes the problem isn't that they're not sorry. The problem is that they don't know how to go about doing that. Or in the same way, yeah, I'm not opposed to, manners are basically just the framework in our culture for how to have these personal interactions and relationship. And they look different in different cultures, right? Like in our culture, you would feel like the child was respecting you and paying attention to you if they looked you in the eye. Whereas in another country, like in some Asian countries, it would be very disrespectful for a child to look a grown-up in the eye. They would be expected to look down when a grown-up was talking to them. So, there's some of it that's just kind of a cultural format, but we live in this culture. And so we can't just not have respect for what the cultural forms are that we live in. As well in other countries. I'm sorry, I must not be thinking fast enough on my feet. Raised to look down when a grown-up was talking to you. Is that what you're saying, Ingrid? That you were raised to keep keep your gaze away from attention deficit disorder. Oh yeah, okay. So anyway, it's not wrong to give your children a format. Like for my children, what I tell them is if somebody's doing something that upsets you, go to them and say, when you, I feel, Now, does an outward framework mean that their attitude is going to be right? Of course not. But, oh, okay. So it would be rude to look an adult in the eye when they were talking to you. It'd be seen like you'd be affronting to them. That is really interesting. I think it helps us to have perspective, though, to remember that these aren't like ultimate, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, these aren't ultimate things. These are not, it's not like thank you is like an objective moral reality. It's just, we need to be grateful. And what does that look like? Well, in our culture, we tend to say thank you when somebody gives you something. So that's how in our culture we can express that. In ancient Rome, if you were thankful for a meal, what you would do is you'd let out the biggest, loudest belch you could let out. And that's what it looked like in ancient Rome to be thankful for the food that you were given. So, yeah, awesome. So anyway, those are just some of the thoughts that I had about sorry. And I think, and my brother Ryan was on here too, and he mentioned that this works for forgiveness also. So, I let my kids say, I know I should be sorry, but I'm not ready to say that yet. I also let them say, I know that I should forgive you, but I don't feel ready to say that sincerely yet. And that's a whole different conversation because there's a lot that you're saying when you're saying that you will forgive somebody. And I really would rather that my children be ready to say that sincerely than to say it offhandedly and then realize later that they would like to go back and work through that issue some more. I forgive you is kind of like the closing of the book. So if you're not ready to close that book, if you need to talk more about what hurt you, it's not time to say, I forgive you yet. Not that it's not time to have a forgiving attitude, but that it's, there's still more work that needs to be done before you can say, I'm ready to put that down and not deal with it again. So anyway, okay, so I started this conversation over on my Facebook page, my blog's Facebook page. So I'm going to be posting this video there. My brother, my 20-year-old, way more technology savvy brother, is here at my house right now. As a matter of fact, he's watching a movie with my kiddos while I do this scope. And as soon as I get off the scope, our project is that he's going to help me figure out how to upload this because, boo-hoo, there's no more Catch. And I'm really missing Catch. And so I have to figure out some other way to save the scopes. Hoping to put this up on, I know, it's really a bummer. The other brother, the Joshua brother is here. Yeah, well, actually, all of my brothers are way more technology savvy than I am, but Joshua is the one who's available during the day. So, all that to say, I'm going to put this on my blog's Facebook page. The Facebook page is HSWO Training Wheels, Homeschooling Without Training Wheels. So if you want to go there and continue the conversation, I know I have 3 very awesome brothers. I really do. Love my brothers very much. So anyway, I'm going to try to put this up on the Facebook page. So if you want to go there and continue the discussion so that you can type with all your fingers instead of just your thumbs, I would love that. I'm not responsible for the husband-wife interchanges that happen on my scopes. I absolve myself of all responsibility for that. Okay, so anyway, go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/HSWO Training Wheels. And when the video's up, then you can continue the discussion there, and that should be fun. All right. Yeah, thank you guys for joining me. It was good times, good fun. Yeah, I just love it when the broadcast won't stop.